All right. So just another recap is you meet with the lender, you get their client pre-approved, you go into contract. About a week after you go into contract, you want to make sure you have your inspection completed. Very typically 10 days or less, you'll need to have your inspection completed once you go into contract. And again, contract basically means not the day you submitted your contract, but when the day both parties signed it, which is called execution, if you remember. Now, um, about 2 to 3 weeks after you go into contract, your bank will do what's called a bank appraisal. Now, this will happen every time you have a financial institution that's going to be lending money to your buyer. They'll be doing what's called an appraisal. Now, there's nothing you need to do for a bank appraisal if you are an agent, even if you're a seller's agent or a buyer's agent. And it's very important that you do nothing and you do not get involved in this process. Back in the predatory lending law changes that we had in 2010 and 11, it prohibited agents to having contact with an appraiser, because what they don't want is agents influencing the appraiser or bribing the appraiser to appraise the house to come up with a certain value or dollar amount, so they can make sure that property basically can be finalized or approved. So they don't want any agent involved at all during this process. The bank will hire an appraiser. They will, the only correspondence at all that you'll get with an appraiser is the appraiser will contact either the seller to ask them if it's okay if they enter in the home to do their appraisal, or if the property is vacant, they might reach out to you just to ask if the time that they are going to be scheduling the appraisal is an okay time for them to come out. And that is it. Please do not go to the appraisal. Don't let them in the appraisal. Stay away from the appraisers, because you don't want to get in a situation in which you could be maybe notated as someone who's trying to bribe them or persuade them to come up with a certain transaction amount. So let's talk a little bit about what an appraiser is and what they do. Well, basically a home appraisal is a value or analysis about what a property's worth. It is an estimate. There are human beings that do this, agents. There are human beings. They are licensed and certified. They are hired by the banks themselves. However, don't get it confused. Even though the bank is hiring these individuals to coming out to appraise your property, that doesn't mean they're paid by the bank. They're paid by your buyer. Appraisers are about $500, and it is required. Their main job is to determine fair market value of that property, and we'll talk a little bit about how they get that. And also too, they're there to protect the bank's assets, and that is their only job. So when they get a contract saying that that this home is valued at $300,000, they will send out this individual, the appraiser, to go to make sure that that house is legitimately worth $300,000. Now, things that they're going to be looking for, all right, when they do a bank appraisal. This is the same thing that you will be doing when you're doing a unofficial appraisal or market analysis for a client. Things that they're going to be looking for. They're going to be looking for how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, square footage, lot size, location. These are going to be all things that they're going to be doing, which we're going to cover in the next slide. That's going to be used, that they're going to be coming up with a market value of that home. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move to the next slide. And we're going to be talking about the things that an appraiser will be looking at to come up with your client's market value of their home. So let's discuss a little bit about what is a bank appraisal. What do they do when they get there? What's going on? What happens when they arrive at their home to come up with this market value? Now, just to make it clear, realtors have the exact same information that an appraiser has when they appraise a home. And that's one of our biggest superpowers as a real estate agent, is that we can go in and gather data to let our clients know what their value of their home is worth. Because a big part of our job is to make sure that our clients can get the most amount of uh, basically value out of the sale of their home. Now, when a bank sends out their appraiser, again, it's about 2 to 3 weeks after you get into contract. They'll do that after the inspection. Typically, they'll wait until the inspection's done. That way, they know for sure that the client is wanting to pursue the property. So the bank will schedule that appraiser to come out to the home. All right. Again, stay away from them. Don't go and talk to them and chit chat or anything like that. Stay out of their way. They do not want to talk to you, and you don't want to get in trouble for trying to act being investigated or pointed out as you're trying to persuade them for a value. Now, when an appraiser comes out to the property, they're going to take things into consideration when they come up with the value of the property. One is square footage of the home. They're going to take that into an account. So, for example, if you have a home that's 123 East Main Street, and then the next door neighbor is 1234 East Main Street, they're in the same community, correct? If one of those homes is larger per square footage, clearly that gives it an advantage to the larger home, meaning that the larger home should be worth more. Now, there's going to be much more things that go into it than that, but I want you to think of it that way. Use common sense, just as an appraiser does when they're valuing homes. So the next thing they take in consideration is number of bedrooms and bathrooms. More bedrooms and bathrooms you have, more your house is worth compared to the neighbor's house that just sold recently. The age and condition of the homes. So, for example, if you have a little neighborhood and there was a brand new house built, that's exactly the same square footage, the same bedrooms and bathrooms. A new home, a brand new home, is going to be worth a little bit more than one that's 50 years old, just because it's newer, right? No different than a car, for example. They do take in account sometimes in the materials that are used. A big thing, and I get this a lot, is when you talk about materials, a home that is completely brick, it's 100% brick, is more valuable than a house that's just made with stucco or siding, because brick is more expensive. Or those homes that are stone, and they're beautiful, have a lot of stonework. Those homes are going to be worth more than a house the similar size that doesn't have any of that. That's just maybe vinyl siding or stucco. Lot size also takes in consideration. If a home in a neighborhood is sitting on a 3-acre lot, even though the house next to it might be the exact same square footage and same bedroom and bathroom size, they have a 3-acre lot. And maybe that home that's next to it only has a 1-acre lot. Obviously, 3 acres are better than 1, which means they'll get a little bit more value added on to the property. Improvements, that's also taken in consideration. If it's an older home, we'll say it's 20, 30 years old, and it's time for some updates, such as a roof and windows and some cosmetic updates. If your client that's selling their home has done all of those, and the next door neighbor home that's same size, square footage, and bedrooms and bath, and etc. If they have not done any of those upgrades, guess what? Your client's home is going to be worth more because they've spent money. Now, one thing I want to preface, you do not get dollar for dollar. If you have a client that says we spent $50,000 in the basement, or we spent $50,000 in these rare luxury countertops for the kitchen, it doesn't mean their house is worth $50,000 more. And you'll see with other homes that are comparable in the neighborhood, if they've upgraded their kitchen with granite, you can kind of compare those apples to apples. Also, too, any damage that the home might have, that could be rare, but we'll say that there has been damage, water damage, mold or mildew, or a fire. Clearly, that house is not going to be worth as much as one that's in good condition. Anything, amenities, could be, if the property has, um, a pool or something like that, that could come into it. But the most important part, and I think I want to preface, is location. All right. Appraisers, and we'll keep it simplistic. In Ohio, we have a lot of neighborhoods, and there's a lot of neighborhoods that have, many, many houses, sometimes several hundred homes in a neighborhood. Um, when an appraiser comes out to the home, they're going to basically start with most recent sales on that particular street. They start working their way, inside out. For example, if you have a home that's across the street from the house you're going to list that sold within 6 months or less, they will be using that as a comparable. They will not. Okay, this is a cardinal rule. Appraisers don't go out of the neighborhood or go across town to find comparables. Comparables are what you'll find in your neighborhood. Very rarely they'll ever go outside of that neighborhood. Now, if you're in the country and you are doing comparables, that's a little different. They will start going what's sold very close to that home, and they'll start expanding their way out. It's a little harder to do comparables in a country situation. If you do, just work with your mentor with that. But all that holds true. Make sure you stay in the same geographical area. Make sure that you're in the same school district. You're looking at the same type of acreage. And again, square footage of the home, age of the home, an example. And one thing, last but not least, they do take in consideration is the current state of the housing market. For example, we were in a situation during the pandemic in which we had multiple years double digit growth. So if you had a comparable, if your next door neighbor sold their home, we'll say in January of that year, if it was within 6 months or so after they sold their home, if the appraiser is going to use that comparable, if we had 15% increases growth in that general area, a few months could be the difference of 6-7% increase in value. 6% increase on a $300,000 house, that's almost 20 grand. Okay, so they will take consideration in the local housing market as well to come up with values. So I hope this helps. Use common sense when you come up with values for homes for your clients. Rule of thumb is, stay in the neighborhood. Do not go outside of the neighborhood. Again, 3 bedrooms are better than 2. 4,000 square foot house is better than a 3,000 square foot house. Use those ideologies when you value a home for your client, because that's exactly what a bank appraiser is going to be doing when they do their appraisal on your client's home.